আসসালামু আলাইকুম। আজকে আমরা সপ্তম দিনে উপস্থিত এবং ধারাবাহিকভাবেই ইসলামিক হিস্ট্রি এবং কাইন্ড অফ মিক্সিং যে আমাদের বর্তমান অবস্থা এই আসলে আমাদের এপিসোড চলতেছিল এবং আমরা আগের দিনে ইরানের যেই উইয়ার্ড কাইন্ড অফ ফ্যাসিনেশন তাদের ন্যাশনালিজম নিয়ে এই নিয়ে আসলে বিস্তারিত আলোচনা করছে যে তারা ইসলামকে আসলে কোন লেন্সে দেখে, তাদের মানুষরা আসলে এখন কোন দিকে যাইতেছে। সো ওটা নিয়ে আগের এপিসোডটা আছে, চাইলে আসলে দেখে আসতে পারো। আজকের এপিসোডে কাইন্ডা এর আশেপাশে ঘুরবো, বাট মোর ইন্টারনাল যে ইস্যুগুলো আসলে চলতেছে ইরানে এগুলো নিয়ে আসলে আলোচনা করবো। সো শুরু করি, পরে আস্তে আস্তে আমি মাঝখানে আসলে কথা বলবো।
That's Iranian blasphemy.
Root the people from their place. Usually nationalism is the opposite. You're trying to root the people, make them feel passion about where they're from or who they are, right? Like an American nationalist. We belong to America. We're white. We're this. But then an Iranian nationalist does the opposite. It's actually very disorienting. So usually nationalism, it has a lot of toxicity, but it gives people some feeling of security. It calms them, makes them feel secure. Iranian nationalism is the opposite. You're going about your life, you're a normal person, and then all of a sudden you say, oh my God, I'm in the wrong region and I'm in the wrong body and I'm following the wrong religion and I have the wrong history and I lost all the wars, and all of a sudden you become this really pathetic loser. And that's ultimately what it is. You're a pathetic loser. So your ancestors converted to Islam, so they were losers. Were dominated, I guess, subjugated by Arabs, Turks, so they're losers. And you're following the wrong religion, so you're a loser. And you live in the wrong region, because they have this idea also that, you know,
আসসালামু আলাইকুম। আজকে আমরা সপ্তম দিনে উপস্থিত এবং ধারাবাহিকভাবেই ইসলামিক হিস্টোরি এবং কাইন্ড অফ মিক্সিং যে আমাদের বর্তমান অবস্থা আমাদের মানুষ আসলে এখন কোন দিকে যাইতেছে। সো ওটা নিয়ে আগের এপিসোডটা আছে, চাইলে আসলে দেখে আসতে পারো। আজকের এপিসোডে কাইন্ডা এর আশেপাশে ঘুরবো, বাট মোর ইন্টারনাল যে ইস্যুগুলো আসলে চলতেছে ইরানে এগুলো নিয়ে আসলে আলোচনা করবো। সো শুরু করি, পরে আস্তে আস্তে আমি মাঝখানে আসলে কথা বলবো।
That's Iranian blasphemy.
root the people from their place. Usually nationalism is the opposite. You're trying to root the people, make them feel passion about where they're from or who they are, right? Like an American nationalist. We belong to America. We're white. We're this. But then an Iranian nationalist does the opposite. It's actually very disorienting. So usually nationalism, it has a lot of toxicity, but it gives people some feeling of security. It calms them, makes them feel secure. Iranian nationalism is the opposite. You're going about your life, you're a normal person, and then all of a sudden you say, oh my God, I'm in the wrong region and I'm in the wrong body and I'm following the wrong religion and I have the wrong history and I lost all the wars, and all of a sudden you become this really pathetic loser. And that's ultimately what it is. You're a pathetic loser. So your ancestors converted to Islam, so they were losers, and they were dominated, I guess, subjugated by Arabs and Turks and South Asians, so they're losers. And you're following the wrong religion, so you're a loser. And you live in the wrong region, because they have this idea also that, the Indo-Aryan migrations, that the Indo-Aryans that went into South Asia were the biggest losers. That was the biggest mistake, right? You could have made, because you became brown. You mixed with Dravidians or whatever. And then the second losers were the Indo-Aryans that went into Iran, because you became desert people. The winners were the Indo-Aryans who said, no, we're going to keep going. And then they went to Turkey, and then into Eastern Europe, and then all the way into Germany and Spain and Italy. So Iranian nationalists, they say, we were almost as like Indians, God forbid, but at least we're here, but we really should have been over there. That's why the Shah said that Iran's geography is an accident of history. That Iranians are more like French people. Yeah, I'm serious. The Iranians are more like French people.
That's the most tragic thing that I've heard about Iranian nationalism. That's genuinely
it's very
depressing.
sad.
As
It
opposed
is
to
a very
grounding the
depressing
people.
thing.
Yeah, as opposed
No, it's a very depressing thing to believe in, unfortunately.
if you have a young guy on internet forum up with this in his teen years, and he's not good at studies, and he's like a typical incel type character, you could really do a number on this kid. You could really
it does. It absolutely does. It's a very damaging ideology to have. Like nationalisms of all sorts have their goods and bads, but the Iranian one, it seems like it has more bad than good, because the other nationalisms, they are reductive, they're simplistic, they are us versus them. But at least the positive element is, okay, you feel good about your country, you feel good about yourself, you have some sort of
your history in general.
Yeah, some unity, you feel kinship with people around you or whatever. Okay, fine, that's fair enough. I'm fine.
I have a really like a mean-spirited. It's not a question that's rooted in any mean-spirited, but it can sound mean-spirited. Mm-hmm. Do you think Persians of old, who are way more Persians than you guys are Turks practically at this point? No offense.
Yeah.
And you're the Turks, and the Turks are Greeks. You know what I mean?
That's very true. Yeah, you're right about that.
So you start making the dog thing. You start doing this.
No, wolf. Dog. Stop
wolf,
for
sorry,
less. Wolf.
Yeah.
Woo. How do you do They do the wolf sound too.
I know they do.
They howl as well. Yeah.
And they look about as cool as we think they do. You know what I mean?
So you're saying we're the real Turks? I am Turkish, but that's true.
Of course, man. Look, I can see it in your face, mashallah. And
you're right. Yeah, you can see it in the eyes.
You have a very handsome face. Yeah, you're very handsome face. It's a noble lineage, and like all lineages, it has some nobility to it. But Turks definitely are dignified people, and when the more Persian than we have now, and I mean in the greater Iran region as well, into Afghanistan, into Central Asia, which is more Mongolified now, Mongolic, whatever you want to call it, which has more steppe influence now. Is that how I describe it? They seem to be fine with their integration into Islamic civilization earlier. But it seems to be something post the stuff with sort of expansionism or the Turkification that you guys don't seem to be comfortable in your skin anymore. I don't know.
It's even more recent than that. If it was that old, at least you could say there's some authenticity to it. It's really like a couple hundred years old at most, maybe even 150 only.
Since the Qajars, you think?
Yeah, in the late Qajar era, and it's covered in this book, The Emergence of Iranian Nationalism. In this late Qajar era, there was just one guy who was a traitor to Iran. His name was Akhundzadeh or Akhundav. If you look him up, it'll come up. And he was a Turkic Iranian, so not even really Persian in any meaningful way. He's Azeri, like me, intellectual of sorts, who went to Russia and kind of became a comprador against Iran. But he cooked up all these ideas that Iranians were this noble, European, Western, whatever, secular people, non-Muslim, and that Islam came and ruined everything and ruined our genetics and ruined our culture and ruined our society and made us backward and brown and all that, and made us co-religionists with Pakistanis and Arabs and all these things. Terrible things. And then that was picked up and propagated in the late Qajar era, but then especially in the Reza Shah era, it basically became the national lore. It became our national identity. It's terrible. The worst possible decision you could have made was to make that our national identity. So it's really only 150 some years ago. And the reason I found this out organically before I even thought about, identity, deconstruction, and nationalism was I was just working on my Persian projects and poetry, and you would think you would see some of these things then, but you don't find it. You find so many things in common. You find our ta'aruf, our senses of etiquette, or our notions of identity. You find threads with these things, but I never once found someone who hated being Muslim or who hated Arabs or who hated South Asians or who hated being where he's from or wanted to move to Europe somehow. Everywhere I looked, I just found people who were zealous Muslims, who were extreme about it, even who were cursing Zoroastrians in Persian. So how did it go that Sa'di, who's kind of the Persian poet in many ways, it says, if Zoroastrian tends his fire for 100 years, but he falls in it for one moment, it'll eat him alive. So he writes a poem mocking Zoroastrians, to where now Sa'di's direct descendants, or spiritual descendants at least, because you say we're Turks now, so maybe we don't really have any connection to him, real earthly connection. They say that we want to be Zoroastrians and we hate that religion, which Sa'di espoused. So clearly something inorganic has been imposed upon us.
Numbers? This is new to me, by the way. This is the Hunzade character, by the way, that you've introduced. This is very fascinating to me. And even in my sort of pedestrian conception of Sa'di would be the Iranian nationalist conception, which is that, it was a sort of a last hurrah, sort of a literary rebellion against Arabism and Islam. And you're sort of, you know what I mean? Like they've sort of twisted it for us. And you mentioned your poetry work. It's beautiful work that you do. I tear up at times. I laugh. I enjoy the stuff you put out, man.
Thank you.
I wish I could ever, I don't think I'll ever get a visa to America, but you know what I mean?
We'll try.
No, I don't think I should try it this time. I don't want to be detained at the airport.
Next administration.
Yeah. I don't think things are going to change now. I think you guys are going to double down on this stuff.
Maybe, I would hope not, but maybe.
I think because I know of the third worldisms that are good. That I know how government actually works. When they get that.
That's so true. That's such a good point. People from the global South, they understand power and politics in a real way. People from Western countries have these deluded notions of rules-based and, what's in the law and rule of law.
You guys get it. Like that kind of, no. Once they get the rod, they're not letting go of it. Like with ICE and stuff, what I see, they've tried with the full citizens, the naturalized citizens, the visitors. They've tried with all the category of American that you can be. And if being Roman is not enough, that means that Rome is bye-bye. It's going to take a century or two. That's a very good
way to put it, yeah.
It's going to take a century or two, but, you'll see the decay. You'll see it. I see it.
No, you're right about that. Americans agree with you.
I wish they did. I wish they had but I think they're too sexed out as a population, the young people. They don't want to do anything. They're on porn and pills.
And undersexed too. It's both at the same time.
The oversexual, when I say oversexed, I mean not in the actual practice of the sex. I mean they're oversexed in like a stimulation, like a psychological.
It's worse in a way.
That one really stupid movie, Demolition Man? You ever saw that film?
I've not
really
seen
dumb movie. Okay, I'm a big 80s, 90s film and even early 2000s, like Hollywood. There's this Sylvester Stallone film. It's about the future. They freeze a cop and then they have to unfreeze him to fight a supervillain from back in the day. Anyways, they end up creating an Orwellian sort of dystopia where everybody's nice and you can't say the no words and blah, 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 blah. And in that world, they don't have, sexual intercourse anymore. They do like an OnlyFans thing where you wear like a helmet and the other person wears a helmet.
Oh my God.
They're oversexed in that Demolition Man kind of way, not in a real. They're undersexed in that sense, and
over at the same time.
I don't see them. Like ICE killed that woman, and I thought this is it. They're gonna come out. They're gonna, nothing.
No, it's not.
You don't just kill a citizen, even in a third world. You don't just you get some response. Okay?
No, you're right.
And as an outside observer, I see the left in America. It's pretty fake and gay. I see the right, the anti-war guys. They're anti-war when it's convenient.
No ideologies mean anything in America. They're all just internet performances. It's all just the elaborate theater kid performance. There's no real political ideologies in America. I've always said this.
Dude, they're all theater kids. You're right. Ben Shapiro's, the Nick Fuentes, they're all secretly gay. They're all theater kids. I'm Matt Walsh and I have a beard and I wear a flannel.
They're all performances. It's all a big performance. Look, our politicians, it's kind of like Zelensky. They all used to be into performance arts. Like this, maybe you won't like this so much, but I'll even say it. Even Zohran Mamdani, he used to be like a rapper and a video guy.
How dare you?
Guy. I know. I gotta be fair. Even our guys.
I know. Dude, Zohran Mamdani is like the biggest psyop I've ever seen in my life. He's not a psyop, but you know what I mean? Like, I'll give an example. The people he is connected to in South Asia are the elite of the elite shit libs, by the way. Right. Pure shit libs from Pakistan and India who support dictatorships and brutal regimes at home, and police crackdown and crackdown on democratic freedoms, but they can go suck up to Mamdani in New York and talk about the culture and wow, falafel's gonna be $1. It's bakwas. Bakwas is BS. It's complete BS.
There's this really funny thing where Westerners don't really understand this. So, I don't know anything about him personally. I'm sure he's a
But
nice
PS,
guy.
don't let anyone know. Don't let the whites know. He's Muslim Brotherhood. Shh, don't
He
tell
is.
them.
So I ran into him in Queens and I said salam. He said salam back. He even held the door for my wife to leave an establishment. So, we'll keep the respect of brotherhood. But
No, I
we all know
respect him. It's his eyes. It's the dead politician eyes that really gave it away, man. That
but what
scared me.
Muslims understand is that elites from the Muslim world are all kind of like living in compounds and they live an elite life. They have like maids and servants and whatnot, which is fine, whatever. It's their risk. They can have it. But when they come to America and they say, I was born in Uganda, I lived in Africa, I'm Indian, you think, wow, like you imagine he's sitting there with like, a tin cup and shaking a tin cup in Africa with like a loincloth. And they don't know he's like the Khwaja, he's the Lord. He's the Sahib Zamindar. Like he was the elite of that society. Why was he in Africa? Because the British took him there. Why did Idi Amin want to kick them out? Because they perceived them as like the extractive colonial leftover class. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, the
whites in South
Gujaratis.
Africa.
No disrespect for the Gujaratis, man. Love them. Absolutely fascinating. The Jews of South Asia. We love them. We respect them. We need them. But they are called the Jews of South Asia, man. The good Jews.
Yeah,
we have them in
the
Pakistan. We have them in India. Yeah, they're called good Jews.
I love that.
called
There's
Guju.
nothing wrong with being a merchant, with making money, with living in a compound. It's just risk.
Hey,
It's halal.
he made my country. A Guju made my country.
Really?
Muhammad Jinnah is
yeah, okay.
Gujarati. Yeah. Mad respect,
So when we see Khojas, we know that they're not like some global South. But then when he talks, he says, "Oh, I'm pro-Palestine because I'm from the global South." It's like, no, you're just like a first worlder in a global. I'm predictable. I hate that. Oh man.
No, that's so un-Iranian, by the way, to be predictable. They're the funny people. From what
That's
I've
very
gathered,
true.
every time I met Iranians, they're very naughty, very sarcastic. They do not mean a single thing that they say. For all the taruf on one side, every single nicety they have to say is totally mean-spirited, and behind it is like this veiled judgment of others.
Yeah.
But you're very un-Iranian. You're very like Sufi in that sense. You're like
I've been influenced by different cultures and here and there. And I
on
was raised
Twitter,
by-
you are Irani. On Twitter,
I'm
you're
Iranian on Twitter. I'm glad that my voice is Iranian at least. It's funny.
Yeah.
Whenever non-Iranians see me, they understand that I am very Iranian. Even in my unconventionalness, it's an Iranian unconventionalness. But the Iranians themselves don't like to accept that I'm Iranian. And one weird thing about Iranian identity is that it's exclusion-based as opposed to inclusion-based. So a lot of, for example, other countries, like if you look at a Turkish country, Turkic country, Arab country, like, oh, we're all Arabs, we're all Turks. And that's kind of what kind of brings them together. Whereas in Iran, it's this purity spiral. It's kind of like a leftist movement. It's this purity spiral that needs to exist by constantly discluding others. So, oh, you're too Afghan, you're too Asiatic, you're too Desi, you're too Arab. So, oh, the Baloch and the Arab and the Turkmen Iranian, they're like not real Iranians. And even if you're Persian, oh, but you're not, secular, so you're not Iranian. But oh, you're secular, but you're a secular leftist, so you're not Iranian. So it ends up being kind of, in the minds of some people, only a secular Persian monarchist right-wing person who is pro the West, but not pro woke.
So রিসেন্টলি যখন মামদানি নিউ ইয়র্ক মেয়র পদে আসলে জিতলো, পুরা ইন্টার ওয়েস্টে একটা ন্যারেটিভ তারা বিল্ড করা শুরু করছিল যে জেড মামদানি সামহাও শরিয়া ল কায়েম কর। বাট যে পয়েন্ট আসলে আমান ভাই বলতেছিল যে জোহরান মামদানি টাইপ যত মুসলিম ক্যারেক্টার তুমি ওয়েস্টে দেখো, বেশিরভাগ কিন্তু আমাদের যে এশিয়া অঞ্চলে আছে, এখানে তারা লিটারালি এলিটদের থেকে বেশি এলিট। সো তাদের জীবন ওয়েস্টের যে কোনো এলিটদের মতোই হয়। সো জোহরান মামদানি যে আসলে একটা সেন্টিমেন্ট তৈরি করতে সক্ষম হয়েছে, যেটা ব্রিলিয়েন্টলি তারা আসলে মেকআপ করতে পারছে যে আমি আমার অ্যানসেস্টর ইন্ডিয়া থেকে, দেন আমরা উগান্ডায় গেছি, উগান্ডা থেকে আমাদেরকে বের করে দিচ্ছে, আমরা আমেরিকায় আসছি। বাট এই পুরো কাহিনীতে সে এমনভাবে প্রেজেন্ট করে এবং আমাদের ইমাজিনেশনকে আসলে ট্রিগার করে যে সামহাও জোহরান মামদানি একটা গরিব ঘরের ছেলে এবং অনেক স্ট্রাগল করছে। বাট তুমি যদি দেখো যে ফার্স্ট অফ অল উগান্ডাতে জোরার মামদানির কাজ কি, সো তখন তুমি ঘাটাঘাটি করলে জানতে পারবা যে তারা ব্রিটিশদের যেই স্ট্রাকচার ছিল, মূল যে অংশ ছিল, ওইখান থেকেই তারা আসলে তার বাবা মাকে উগান্ডাতে নিয়ে গেছে এবং উগান্ডা থেকে তখন বের করে দিছে। সো তারা পরে নিউ ইয়র্কে উপস্থিত হয়েছে। সো এই পুরো চেনে তারা ছিল হলো সবচাইতে এলিট শ্রেণীর অংশ যে কোনো রাষ্ট্র। ইন্ডিয়াতে তারা এলিট শ্রেণীতে ছিল, গুজরাটের। এবং জোরানন্দানি যত তুমি ফ্রেন্ডশিপ দেখবা, ওই ফ্রেন্ডশিপে তুমি লক্ষ্য করতে পারো যে পাকিস্তান ইন্ডিয়ানদের সবচেয়ে এলিট শ্রেণীর তোমার ক্লোজ সার্কেলে জোরানন্দানি তোমার উঠা বসা করতেছে। সো তাদের ওই মেকআপ করতে তারা সক্ষম। বাট সামহাউ আমাদের আসলে মনে করে নেওয়া যে মুসলিম কোন নাম ওয়েস্টে গেলে ইসলাম কায়েম করবে, এটা আসলে সত্য না, প্রথম কথা। সেকেন্ড, তাদের সত্যি ইসলাম নিয়ে কোনো যায় আসা না, ঠিক আছে। এবং জোরানন্দানিকে যারা আসলে সাপোর্ট করে তারা কিন্তু আবার ভারতবর্ষে ডিকটেটর, ইউনো, কোন অ্যাকাউন্টেবল থাকবে তাদেরকে সাপোর্ট করে। কিন্তু যখন আমেরিকা যায় তখন ডেমোক্রেসি, স্বাধীনতা, লিবারালিজম, মানে কি একটা মেকআপ যে দেয়। এবং এই জোরানন্দানির ঠিক নির্বাচনের আগে পরে আমি কিছু বাংলাদেশি এবং ইন্ডিয়ান পাকিস্তানিদেরকে নিউ ইয়র্কের সেলিব্রেশন করতে দেখতেছিলাম, যে মানে কি একটা বিপ্লব যেন আসলে হইতেছিল। বাট রিয়েলি আসলে নাথিং। মানে তুমি আমেরিকাতে বসে আছো, পুরো একটা আইডিওলজির হেডকোয়ার্টারে, তুমি ওইখানে আসলে কোনো কিছু কায়েম করতে পারবা, কোনো কিছু স্ট্যাবলিশ করবা, কোনো কিছুর আসলে ইউনো বীজ গাঁথবা, এটা আসলে হয় না, এত ইজিলি হয় না, এত ইজিলি আসলে হওয়ার না। এবং জোরান মামদানির জাতিলিস্ট না, জোরান মামদানির পুরো ক্যারেক্টারটা এত বেশি থিয়েট্রিক্যাল, এত বেশি তোমার ফেক লাগে তুমি। এবং তুমি দেখতে পারো যে জোরান মামদানি যখন দেখবা তখনই তোমার মনে হবে যে দেয়ার সামথিং রং। এই মানুষটা এইভাবে বিহেভ কেন করতেছে? এই মানুষটা কিছু সেন্টিমেন্ট হইতে পারে রিয়েল, যেহেতু লিবারেল, আমি বললাম যে লিবারেল আর্ট, তার পড়ালেখা, তার কেরিয়ার, র্যাপার, সো পুরো একটা সার্কেল আছে যেখানে তোমার লিবারেল আইডিয়া গুলোকে আসলে প্র্যাকটিস করা অথবা লিবারেল আইডিয়া গুলোকে আসলে তোমার ধারণ করে। বাট সামহাও ইসলামের কোনো কিছু আসলে উপকার হবে লং টার্মে বা শর্ট টার্মে, না, এরকম কোনো কিছু আসলে হইতেছে না। না নেতানিয়াহুকে সে অ্যারেস্ট করতেছে, ওইরকম কোনোটা আসলে আমেরিকার ভূমিতে আসলে হইতেছে না। সো ইয়া,
or 20 years as an Iranian. So it's like according to Iranians, there's like a vanishingly small number, and all groups kind of have this idea. The Islamists say, oh, the secularists are not really Iranians, like Israelified or Israeli assets or whatever. There's always this constant flame war about who counts as a real Persian. And if you find at the end, there's like 3 people. There's this meme I remember some Islamophobe posted it, and it was a Muslim guy wearing like a Salafi looking thobe. And I think originally it said the last Salafi in the world, but they changed it to last Muslim. So it was originally an internal critique. He had a sword on his toes facing towards his face, and like a dagger in his teeth, and 2 swords in his hands, and all 4 of the swords were locked into each other, and like through the edge of his mouth he was just whispering like "Inta kafir," like you're a disbeliever. So it's like even if there was one Muslim on the earth, he would takfir himself. So that's kind of what Persians are like. Even if there was one Persian left on earth, he would say, "I'm not Persian enough," to himself.
Yeah, I've seen that meme, and it was an internal critique of Salafi style thinking.
Yeah.
I've seen that, and it's very tragic to hear that Iranian nationalism is like that. There's another angle, and before we get into the actual what's happening right now, because I'm just having a fanboy moment. I'm just want to make you laugh.
Too kind.
I just keep throwing out these like one-liners. I just want to make you laugh. And I know the audience is gonna hate me for it, but I don't care. I actually don't care. I'm pretty obnoxious on the thing anyways. I don't care. There's one aspect to it. The Persianism, I understood. Alhamdulillah, you've explained it very well. You've rooted in the end of the Qajar dynasty, and then going into the Shah era, and then how it sort of aligns in a weird way with what's going on right now. What about this is sensitive stuff, so I'm going to stop making some jokes for a little bit. Just a little bit. Is in Pakistan we have this notion amongst the Shia as well as reverent Sunnis, reverent in the sense of that they have reverence for Iran, that Shiaism informs Iran's worldview. And the Ayatollahs have sort of tempered it in a way where it's become more Sunni friendly. It's more Sunni.
They have, that's very true.
It's more palatable. And it's very strange to people. People don't realize that even Sunnis who hate Iran for Shiaism realize that Iran, the Islamic revolution, has made it more Sunni palatable.
Very much so. That's a very good point that very few people understand. So before the Iranian Revolution, or maybe even go before Safavid. So it's a multi-100-year process. Shiism before the Iranian Revolution was more like being Alavi or Ismaili or Druze or Bora or etc. today, not in the sense of like how different you are from Sunnis or whatever, but in the sense that it was very insular, it was inward looking, it was more maybe outwardly heretical looking, and it was consciously not Sunni and not, it didn't even care about being similar to Sunnis. And then Shah Ismail, when he converted Iran to Shiism, he was kind of the schizo, Gulati, esoteric, Gnostic, Sufi Shi type that exists, like maybe in the mountains of Kurdistan and Turkey and Iran, they exist, these types of people, like very esoteric, spiritual, but that wasn't going to work for a country. A country needs kind of like a more mainstream. So he said, okay, what's the most mainstream version of being 12er, most palatable for a country, most able to run a country on this? Because you can't run a country on a Gnostic sect, which is what he was. He was like a Sufi, Shia, Gnostic, that type of thing. So he found being a 12er, being a Ja'fari, as we came to call it, but it wasn't called that. And he found basically that in Jabal Amal in southern Lebanon, where certain group exists today, and also in Bahrain, and they still are there are these types of 12er Shias who have more of like a scholarly approach. They have fiqh, they have these texts and whatnot. So he brings them and he says, make Shiism look like a madhab the way that we had before. So they write down, Khomeini and Majlisi and all these people are paid by the Safavids to write down Bihar al-Anwar and all of these famous Shia texts that no non-Shia probably has ever heard of. And then
no, we know them. Pakistan,
you know them?
Pakistan,
Okay, great.
we know them.
So Bihar al-Anwar and the fiqh and all these things are kind of codified and written down, and Shiism becomes like a more recognizable mazhab, but it still has things that are like very outwardly non-Sunni or even anti-Sunni, like tatbir and a big emphasis on Muharram and don't pray with Sunnis, and Sunnis aren't real fully Muslims and all those things like everyone kind of believes about other groups, unfortunately. And then what happens is time goes on, and eventually the guy who actually sacks Delhi, Nader Shah, Afshar. He was Turkic, and I think he was secretly Sunni. And his tribesmen were all Turkmen Sunnis. So he tries to make being 12er more like being Sunni. He comes up with this idea, maybe it was around then, but he's the one who makes it a thing, of saying, no, Shiism is not like this whole different identity. It's just a madhab. It's Ja'fari. So they have, Imam Malik and all these people, and Ja'far as-Sadiq taught these people. So if their forebear is Malik or Abu Hanifa, then our forebear is Ja'far as-Sadiq and we're Ja'fari. So he kind of brought them as like al-madhab al-khamis, the fifth madhab, which sounds weird today. We think of 4 as being locked in, but there was more and less in the past. Like there was the Awzahi madhab, the Zahiri madhab, like these things that don't even exist anymore. It wasn't impossible for the Hanbalis to like stop being counted. I don't know. Like you could have added or removed. It sounds weird to us today. This is 200 years ago. So then what happens is that process of mainstreaming Shiism that starts with the Safavids, that continues with people like him, basically comes to fore with Khomeini and Khamenei and the Iranian Revolution, because Khomeini realizes that there's no way that I can spread my ideology and Iran's influence with these kind of more wonky practices in Shiism. Well, good news is that these aren't even essential. These are things that were added on later, like tatbir, which is prevalent in Afghanistan and Pakistan and Iraq now, but not in Iran because it was banned in Iran. Or takfiring Sunnis, which they got rid of, or the more kind of odd elements of the theology have been like retconned or sidelined or de-emphasized. Like, for example, historically, some 12ers would have said that the prayers of a non-12er are not fully proper because believing in the walaya of Imam Ali is actually like an essential element of Islam. That someone who doesn't believe in Imam Ali's wilaya is not like a real full Muslim yet. But they kind of, like they retcon that. So now, for example, Khomeini said that you can pray in Hajj behind Sunnis and it counts. Before, Shias wouldn't pray behind Sunnis, but now they say you can pray behind Sunnis and it counts. Or that Sunnis are your brother, that you can like have full brotherly Islamic rights with them. And there's no like element of they're not fully my brother because they're Sunni. So then, and then even as time goes on, they retcon and they reform, and they actually kind of, so Shiism has been heavily reformed and made more palatable to the Sunni world. They, for example, even most recently, they banned saying anything negative about the companions and caliphs and things like that. So before they said, oh, just don't curse them. Now they're like fully like, guys, this is just not something to talk about because it's just going to cause division. And I think it's not just political. I think they really do believe in this project of making Shiism kind of a more worldwide respectable, worldwide accepted, because we live in a different world. We live in the world of the internet. Whatever you do is recorded. So Iran actually has reformed Shiism, and the Shias who hate this reform, who believe in sticking to the old way, the people like, you know, the Shirazis, for example, are a group of clerics, and among others, even Sistani is not fully on board with this stuff, by the way. This is more Iranian. They call the Iranian Shias, yeah, they call them Batri, which I don't even want to get into like the linguistics. But basically, the idea is like sellout Shias. That you're just sold out to Sunnis. You know, you're not the real deal anymore.
No, only hardcore Pakistani and Indian Shias will say, "Oh, where Sistani grew up and where this, that, and the other." And
exactly. Yeah.
they associate with Vaizin or ulama who are more, they were critical of Iran's positions, and
that's very true.
The rest of them, in terms of practice of cursing the Sahaba, and they try to keep it, in Pakistan especially, they try to keep it more private. And they will try, and those who try to keep in line in Pakistan, I feel like the Shia community tries to keep it more in line with Iran. In India, they're a bit more of a wild, sort of like a bit more of a loose
because India is more religiously wild anyway. They can do whatever they want there.
Yeah. Pakistan's sort of
be crazy.
Pakistan's sort of milk toast like kind of religiosity, and in that milk toast sort of religiosity, I found that the only thing that, you know, sort of Sunnis about Shiaism or Iran, if ever, by the way, which is rare because people marry. We're not like a Lebanon or whatever. We just get married.
No, you're not. I was so
the
surprised by
president
that.
And they're the prime minister.
Yeah. I was so surprised by that.
No, alhamdulillah, it's been a blessing, and I think it's to do with the subcontinental sort of openness. It's high openness sort of culture.
Thank God.
It's very like, because it's a main route on the Silk Road. People are like, you know, nobody's from nowhere, and so many migrant communities and beliefs, and so the subcontinent is wild in terms of religious, but the entity that is Pakistan is a bit more milk toast when it comes to religion. Like we have laws and stuff about the Sahaba and the Prophet that actually quite famous globally. We're quite famous for that stuff. But when it comes to Shiism, the only thing that I've heard people, when it boils down, because people don't have a complex understanding of the history and the theology and the way it developed or the fiqh, it's like they hate the Sahaba. That's it. That's about it.
Yeah.
And the other one, at best, if you get more with the Salafi types, is that their Tawheed is, you know, is kind of
it's
wonky.
broken, and yeah.
That's it. That's about it. Beyond that, like in down to the middle class, I've seen. I don't know. I couldn't speak to you about rural areas, but Sunnis marry Shia marry women.
I've seen this before. You know, yeah,
it's normal. It's not even a thing. It's not even a thing. In fact, people might make a sort of ironic joke like, you married, and with the irony of like, they wouldn't even, I don't even.
Yeah, I've seen this. You know, I've experienced this openness. I mean, and everyone immediately calls you, are you sure Sunni? So smell a whiff of you're not Arab or something like that. Everyone just, no one asked any question. No one that made any aspersion. I mean, very respectful and like very like purposely, I could tell, even not wanting to broach the subject just out of just pure respect, so that I wouldn't feel like, oh, I'm in no man's land. I'm getting questioned and I'm going to be harassed for my whatever Iranianness. And I think it also goes to the historic positive ties between South Asia and Iran, that they, even if theologically they're not Shi'i, they disagree with Shiism, that they view it as like, okay, this is like a religion that comes from a brother country. These people have connections to a brother country. And I think maybe a little bit of that kindness goes in the opposite direction with respect to Iranian Baloch. Like Iranians, they have this kindred connection with our Baloch citizens, and you don't really see anyone bothering them or anyone questioning them being Sunni. We view them as like, you know, they're like the road to this kindred civilization. They're like the midway point that we have, and of course their region has all kinds of troubles, but it's mostly like political, resource based. It's never about the fact that they're Sunni, thank God, and that's like a big thing.
No, thank
in Iran.
God.
Yeah,
Thank
the
God,
most,
by the
even
way.
the most nut job secularist you will ever meet in Iran, the most insane person would never say, "Oh, I hate those Sunni Baloch people." If anything, maybe they would feel kinship with them because they also feel like they were aggrieved as well. So that's one thing I really like about Iran and Pakistan is that you find people with all kinds of weird ideologies, even messed up ones, but they tend to not go there. Where like in Arab countries, it is a real thing. Like if you're a Shia in an Arab
No,
country,
and the rhetoric in Iran and Pakistan, I've noticed that the rhetoric doesn't ever translate into actions. We talk a big
That's very
game,
true,
and
yeah.
we're not a mean people. Like actually, we're like actually quite bashful and full of shame and don't
That's very
offend the
true, yeah.
guest or whatever. And in Iran, even I think the only negative impact, unfortunately, comes from the state's sort of religious control. If Iran was let go of, and I'm not saying it in the cynical American intervention
Yeah.
sense, you'd be more like Pakistan in the sense of
No,
you'd have
that's
Sunnis
100%
and,
true. I've tried to explain
you'd
this
have
to
masajid
people.
and everywhere and all that stuff. All the
Yeah,
complaints the
so
Sunnis have, you wouldn't
religious
have those.
and secular Iranians don't want to accept this, but it's true. So secular Iranians think if they let go of religion, that everyone will become an atheist. And religious Iranians think that if they let go of religion, everyone will be an atheist. They kind of agree on this, but the funny part is it's not
and
true.
Wahhabis think if you
Really?
guys let go of religion, that if you
Oh,
guys let
wow.
go of religion, everyone will become Sunni.
No, that's also not true. What will happen is Iranians will just become like Pakistanis.
আল্লাহ সো আমি যে বিষয়টা আসলে বলতেছিলাম যে ইরানে যে শিয়া মাযহাব আছে বর্তমানে আমরা যা আসলে দেখি যে স্ট্রাকচারে দেখি এই স্ট্রাকচার কিন্তু বেশ রিসেন্টলি আসলে ডেভেলপ হয়েছে যেটা আসলে ভাই বলতেছিল আনটিল ভেরি রিসেন্টলি মানে 1-1.5 বছর মাত্র হয়েছে যে শিয়া একটা লিটারালি তুমি বলতে পারো শিয়ারা খুব বেশি কেয়ার করতো না যে তারা সুন্নিদের কাছাকাছি কারণ সুন্নিরা কি মেইন স্ট্রিম মাযহাব মেইন স্ট্রিম আমাদের ইসলাম যখনই আমরা চিন্তা করি তখনই সাউদির কথা চিন্তা করি তখনই পাকিস্তানের কথা চিন্তা করি সো মিশরের কথা চিন্তা করি সো যখন তুমি এর বাইরে যে আসলে বলতেছে যে সৌদিরা মুসলিম না মিশরীরা মুসলিম না পাকিস্তানিরা মুসলিম না তার মানে কি তুমি অনেক বেশি হার্ডকোর প্লাস তোমার কাছে এভিডেন্সও আছে বাট ইরানিরা না সবসময় ওই এভিডেন্স আসলে সরাই দিত প্লাস তারা হার্ডকোর বাট তারা ওই এভিডেন্স আসলে প্রেজেন্ট করতে ইচ্ছুক না জাস্ট তারা হার্ডকোর তারা সবচেয়ে বেশি রিলিজিয়াস তারাই মুসলিম বাট ওই জিনিসকে তারা কোনো সময় খাতা কলমে বা মানুষের সামনে প্রেজেন্ট করার মতন অবস্থা কোনো সময় আনেনি ঠিক আছে এবং এটা প্রায় অলমোস্ট 1000 বছর ধরে হয়ে আসতে যার কারণে তুমি দেখবে যে পার্সিয়াতে সুন্নি পপুলেশন ছিল প্লাস সুন্নিদের যত গ্রেট স্কলার আছে তারা সব কিন্তু পার্সিয়া থেকে সেন্ট্রাল এশিয়া থেকে সো বাট যখন শাহ ক্ষমতা আসলো তখন শিয়াকে মাযহাব করার জন্য কারণ মেইন স্ট্রিম তো আসলে করতে হবে তারা যেটা আসলে বলতেছিল এবং কান্ট্রির ভিতরে কিন্তু তুমি এত ডিসফাংশন এত ছোট ছোট ফ্র্যাকশনে তুমি আসলে কান্ট্রি চালাইতেও পারবা না প্লাস কান্ট্রিকে তুমি স্থিতিশীল রাখতে পারবা না সো ইরান আজকের দিনে যত বেশি মাযহাব ওরিয়েন্টেড হয়েছে এর আগ পর্যন্ত তারা লিটারালি শুধু তারা মনে করতো যে আমরাই মুসলিম ওইটার থেকে আসলে মাযহাবে ফিরে আসা এবং সুন্নিদেরকে আসলে বরণ করা যে প্রবণতা এখন দেখা যাইতেছে এটা যে কোনো রিজনই হোক বাট এখন তারা কিন্তু এটা বিশ্বাস করা শুরু করছে আইনেও আসলে রূপান্তর করা শুরু করছে প্লাস ওরা অ্যাকশনে আসলে নেওয়া শুরু করছে সো এই বিষয়গুলো কিন্তু খুবই ইন্টারেস্টিং এবং গ্রহণযোগ্যতা এখন মানুষের কাছে আর অনেক বেশি পাবে শিয়া যে মাযহাবটা আছে সো এটা হলো একটা পোর্শন এবং আমাদের ভারতবর্ষের যে কথা আসলে বলতেছেন এটা আমার কাছে খুবই আসলে ভালো লাগছে যে আমাদের ভারতবর্ষের মানুষ যা মুখ দিয়ে আসলে বলে এটা কিন্তু আমরা অ্যাকশনে রূপান্তর করি না তুমি দেখো বাংলাদেশে আমাদের আলেমরা অনেক বড় বড় ডায়লগ কিন্তু মারে বাট তুমি যে শুনতেছে সেও জানে না এরকম কোনো কিছু সে করবে না যখন রোহিঙ্গার ইনসিডেন্ট হয় 2016 সালে তখন আমাদের আলেমরা বলছিল 2 সপ্তাহের আলটিমেটাম দিলাম 1 মাসের আলটিমেটাম দিলাম এর ভিতরে যদি মায়ানমার রোহিঙ্গাদেরকে ভালোভাবে ব্যবস্থা করে ফিরে নেয় না আমরা মায়ানমারে যুদ্ধ করব, মায়ানমার আগুন ধরাবো, এবং অনেক বড় বড় ডায়লগ ছিল। বাট আজকে 10 বছর হয়ে গেছে, 2026 সাল চলে, 2015 সাল থেকে 2016 সালে আমাদের রোহিঙ্গা রেফিউজি ক্যাম্পের মানুষরা আসছে। তুমি একবার চিন্তা করো। সো আমরা, এবং কোনো মিলিশিয়া গ্রুপও তৈরি হয় নাই, কোনো, মানে তুমি দেখতেছো যে আমরা এত বেশি পিসফুল, আমরা এত বেশি, মানে আমরা রেটরিকে ঠিক আছে, বাট ওইটা আসলে অ্যাকশন, যে আমরা এত বেশি জিরো, বা আমরা এত বেশি ডাম, ওই সেন্সে যে আমরা মুগ্ধ যা বলি, রিয়েলি আমরা এর কোনো কিছু আসলে বাস্তবায়ন করি, মানে অ্যাকচুয়াল লাইফে এর কোনো কিছু আসলে হয় না, এবং হওয়ারও না। আমাদের ওই ক্যারেক্টারিস্টিক গুলো এরকম, যদিও পাকিস্তান কিছুটা ভিন্ন, পাকিস্তান কিছুটা আসলে তারা অ্যাকশনে নিতে পারে, বাট আমাদের ওভারঅল যে ভারতবর্ষের যে ওপেননেস, যে কথা বলা, পরে শায়রি থেকে আসলে আসলে কিছুটা ইন্সপিরেশন নেওয়া, শায়রি যত বেশি পার্সিয়া থেকে বাংলাদেশে পপুলার, আরবে কিন্তু এতটা পপুলার না। আরবে মানুষেরা অনেক বেশি শব্দকে অনেক বেশি সম্মান দেয় কোরআনের জন্য। সো পার্সিয়া তো শব্দের মূল্য আছে, বাট ওটা অনেকটা না, মানে পোয়েট্রিক্যাল, যে কেউ তোমাকে তারফ করতেছে, ওটা শুধু বলার জন্য বলতেছে, ওটা মানে ভিতর থেকে আসতেছে, বা ওটা অ্যাকচুয়ালি কোনো ম্যাটার করে না তাদের জন্য। সো এবং পোয়েট্রি কিন্তু ইন জেনারেল একটা ফেকনেসকে, তোমার একটা ফেকনেস এলিমেন্টকে তোমার কি করে, ট্রিগার করার চেষ্টা করে। এটা অনেকটা তোমার তোমার রাগী বউকে আসলে রাগ সরানোর জন্য তুমি যে সব লাইন বলো, যা অ্যাকচুয়ালি কোনো সময় ম্যাটার করে না। সো ব্যাপারটা হলো এরকম, আমাদের শিয়া মাযহাব থেকে শুরু করে ভারতবর্ষের যতগুলো মাযহাব আছে, মাযহাবের এলিমেন্টের কিছুটা এক্সট্রিম কোর ছাড়া ইন জেনারেল আমাদের পুরো সমাজ কিন্তু মানুষ মুখে যা বলে, বাস্তবে এর লিটারেলি 100%-এর 2-3% আসলে বাস্তবায়ন করে। আমি তোমার যাই একটা উদাহরণ দিলাম, এবং রোহিঙ্গা ইস্যু কিন্তু আমাদের জন্য অনেক বড় একটা লিটমাস টেস্ট ছিল, যে বাংলাদেশ এজ এ এন্টিটি হিসেবে মুসলিমদেরকে বাঁচানোর জন্য কোন রিয়াকশন দেয় কিনা। এবং এটা আসলে গ্লোবাল যারা আসলে জিও পলিটিক্স বুঝে খেলার চেষ্টা করে, তারাও জানে যে বাংলাদেশে তোমার অলমোস্ট 20 কোটি জনসংখ্যা আছে, 18 থেকে 19 কোটি মুসলিম থাকে, 1 কোটিরই কম তোমার অন্য মাযহাবের লোক, অন্য ধর্মের লোক। সো তারা চিন্তা করছে যে আমরা লিটমাস টেস্ট করে দেখি যে বাংলাদেশ কোন সময় আসলে কোনো ভিতর থেকে আসলে কোনো কিছু আসে কিনা। বাট আমরা মিজারেবলি ফেল করছি ওই টেস্টে, এবং পাশ করছি ওই সেন্সে যে আমরা এত বেশি রেটোরিক্যাল, এত বেশি ফেক, ওই সেন্সে যে আমরা কোনো কিছু করার যোগ্য না, প্লাস কোনো কিছু করার মতন ইচ্ছাও রাখি না। এবং ফেল করছে ওই সেন্সে যে আমরা ফিলিস্তিনের কথা, তাহলে এই রেটোরিক্যালি ওটা আসলে অ্যাকচুয়াল কোনো মিনিং রাখে না। যদি তুমি আমি রোহিঙ্গা ইস্যুতে আমাদের লিটারালি বর্ডারে, আমি যে মুহূর্তে কথা বলছি, এই মুহূর্তে আমাদের বাংলাদেশ আর্মি চাইলে স্ট্রাইক করতে পারে আরাকান আর্মির উপর, এবং যা করছে এর ফলে, এবং বাংলাদেশের আর্মির পক্ষে সম্ভব এই পুরো জিনিসটাকে আসলে ট্যাকেল দেওয়া, একটা এন্ড রেজাল্ট পর্যন্ত নিয়ে যাওয়া। বাট সামহাউ উই ডিসাইড নট টু এনিথিং, যেটা আসলে তুমি বলতে পারো ইন্টারন্যাশনাল ল, একটা ফ্রেমওয়ার্ক, মানে ওই বোরিং একটা পথায় আমরা যাইতেছি, যা আমরা বিশ্বাস করি ওইখান থেকে আসলে কোনো কিছু বের হবে না। কারণ দেখো, যদি বিশ্বাস না করতাম তাহলে পাকিস্তানের সাথে আমরা যুদ্ধই করতাম, কারণ আমরা বিশ্বাস করতাম যে পাকিস্তানের সাথে ইউনাইটেড নেশন সলিউশন দিতে পারবে না। যখন ইউনাইটেড নেশন অ্যাকচুয়ালি ওয়ার্ক করতো, আমি 60-70 দিকে কথা বলতেছি, যখন 2 সুপার পাওয়ারের জন্য ইউনাইটেড নেশন প্রচুর অ্যাক্টিভ হইতো, ফান্ড করতো জাপান। সো আমি তখনকার কথা বলতেছি, যদি আমরা তখন বিশ্বাস না করতাম যে বাংলাদেশের যে কজ এটা শুধুমাত্র যুদ্ধের মাধ্যমে সম্ভব, ইতিটা না, তাহলে আমরা মায়ানমারের জন্য, রোহিঙ্গা ইস্যুর জন্য ওই জিনিসটি বিশ্বাস করি না। সো এটা অনেকটা হলো যে আমরা নিজেদের জন্য যা ভালো মনে করি, রোহিঙ্গাদের জন্য তা ভালো মনে করি না। সো আমরা বিশ্বাস করি যে ইউনাইটেড নেশন এই সমস্যার সলিউশন দিতে পারবে না, বাট সামহাও আমরা সাপোর্ট করতেও রাজি না। সো আমার ভাইয়ের কথা সত্য যে ভারতবর্ষে আমরা সবকিছু রেটোরিক্যাল, সবকিছু শুধু বলার জন্য বলি, বাট ওটাকে অ্যাকচুয়াল অ্যাকশনে নেওয়ার মতন আমাদের একা তো ক্যাপাসিটি নাই, প্লাস আমাদের নেওয়ার ওই ইচ্ছাটাও আসলে নাই। এটা ভালো সেন্সও আছে, খারাপ সেন্সও আছে, দুটোটাই আসলে আছে। আজকে তো এতটুকুই, ইনশাল্লাহ আবার আগামীকাল দেখা হইতেছে। আসসালামু আলাইকুম।